If I had to bet, I'd say that most of you think that the Mani Axe is the best axe in Lumber Tycoon 2. I mean, it does have the highest overall DPS of any axe in the game. However, damage per second isn't everything when determining if an axe is the best or not. In fact, some axes in the game actually have higher DPS values than the Mani Axe on specific tree types. So in this video, I will be going over the 6 best axes in Lumber Tycoon 2 and explaining what makes each of them so special. I will also explain how to obtain these axes along with which axes you should always have on you based on your specific playstyle. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So really quickly, before we get into what I believe are the best 6 axes in Lumber Tycoon 2, I want to explain some honorable mentions which all have their own special properties. So starting off, we have the Fire Axe, and the Fire Axe does an insanely high amount of DPS to Volcano Wood at 27.07. In a similar fashion, the Cave Axe does an insanely high amount of damage to Cave Crawler Wood, coming in at 32.72 DPS. Next up, we have the Bird Axe, and this axe is special as it's a hybrid between the Fire Axe and the Cave Axe. It has a DPS of 6.25 on Volcano Wood, and a DPS of 9.75 on Cave Crawler. So while it is significantly worse than the Cave Axe and the Fire Axe on those 2 woods, it is useful if you like getting both of those woods and only want to deal with one axe. Next up, we have the Overgrown Axe, and this axe is special because it deals 15.22 DPS to Zombie Wood and 15.29 DPS to Gold Wood. So if you really like the tree types in the swamp, I recommend getting this axe, but otherwise it's not really that useful. Finally, we have the Pie Axe, which has a DPS of 5.67 on Cherry Wood. Okay, anyways, now that the honorable mentions are out of the way, let's get into the 6 best axes. So let's begin with the obvious, that being the Mani Axe. This axe has the highest overall DPS of any axe in the game at 5.37. However, with that high DPS comes an insanely high cooldown at 1.9 seconds. And due to this insanely high cooldown, the axe is not necessarily great at chopping very weak trees such as oak. However, aside from those rare edge cases, the Mani Axe is typically your best bet when it comes to choosing a singular axe to use. One thing to note about the Mani Axe though is that you have to buy it from other people through trading, and you cannot get it if you are playing the game legitimately or if you just do not want to trade with other players. Alright, next up we have the Bluesteel Axe, and this axe is very good for 3 key reasons. The first reason is that it has an insanely high overall DPS. In fact, it's the second highest, only behind the Mani Axe. And this DPS value of 4.67 makes it a very good axe to use on any tree. Now the second reason why the Bluesteel Axe is so good is because it has a DPS of 20.3 on Blue Spruce. And this is incredibly useful as Blue Spruce Wood is both a limited time tree and also a very dense tree, which means that getting the Bluesteel Axe is going to save you a ton of time when harvesting. Finally, the last reason why the Bluesteel Axe is so OP is because of its fling ability. See, in Lumber Tycoon 2, there's this bug called axe flinging, where basically you just position your camera up against a tree, then chop the tree as you flick your camera. And for some reason, the Bluesteel Axe does this glitch better than every single axe in the game, and you can use this to your advantage when doing things such as hunting for spookwood, or just going around the map super fast. If you want to learn about how to do this axe glitch, I do have a video on it which I will link down in the description. One more thing that the Bluesteel Axe has going for it is that it should return to the store every year, which means you don't have to go through the hassle of trading in order to get this axe. Next up, we have the End Times Axe, and what makes this axe super special is that it is the only axe in the game that can currently chop every single type of tree. And it can do this because it is the only axe in the game which can chop Phantom Wood, also known as Lone Cave Wood or End Times Wood. And this makes the axe super useful because if you want to build with this rare wood, you need to have this axe. As for stats, this axe actually is pretty decent on its own, having a DPS of 3.95, which is just a little bit under that of the rookie axe. And like the Bluesteel Axe, the End Times Axe actually comes back into the game every single year on Halloween. And if you want information about how to get this axe, I have a whole separate video on it, which I will link down below. Next up is the Gingerbread Axe, and this axe is special because it can chop both koa and walnut wood insanely fast. And it has a DPS value of 27.5 and 21.25 on those woods respectively. Anyways, along with being really great on those two very dense woods, the Gingerbread Axe also has something else which made it a notable addition to this list. And that something is its insanely high range. See, this little axe, which is also the smallest axe in the game by the way, is able to chop trees 32 studs away, which is just insane. And this range makes it super useful for cutting branches that are really high up that other axes will not be able to reach. Unfortunately, the Gingerbread Axe was available only as a present, which means that you do have to trade in order to get it. Next up, we have the Candy Corn Axe, and what makes this axe special is actually not found in its statistics. No, what makes it special is its hitbox, which is just the perfect size for axe climbing. If you don't know what axe climbing is, basically it's a glitch that allows you to scale any wall in Lumber Tycoon 2 simply by using your axe. And if you want to learn more about this glitch, I have a video which will be linked down below that explains everything that you need to know. So yeah, the Candy Corn Axe is a really good axe for axe climbing, but not so good for anything else. It was also a limited time item, which means you do have to trade to get it. And the last axe on this list is the Frost Axe, and that is because of its insanely high DPS of 19.35 on frost wood. And the reason why this is so important is that frost wood is the most OP wood in the game. So if you are ever grinding for money in Lumber Tycoon 2, you're going to be grinding frost wood and you're going to want the Frost Axe. However, even if you aren't necessarily grinding for any money, the Frost Axe is still super useful because of how useful Frostwood is. See, Frostwood has this cool icy mechanic that allows it to slide and other items to slide on it. And this is super useful in mechanical builds where you need certain items to slide around. The only downside to the Frost Axe is that you do need to go ahead and buy it from another player, as it was a limited time Christmas gift. Alright, now that we've gone over the top 6 axes in Lumber Tycoon 2, let's go over which axes you should have in your toolbar depending on which type of player you are. For starters, I think that everyone should always have a Mani Axe on them, and that's just because the Mani Axe has such a high DPS. However, if you are a legit player and don't want to trade, you can substitute the Mani Axe for the Bluesteel Axe, as its high DPS is also super good. As for the End Times Axe, you don't really need to keep this axe on you unless you are currently working with phantom wood. However, I do still recommend that you keep one of these axes on your base just in case a piece of phantom wood ever pops up and you need to chop it. Now for the Gingerbread Axe, I recommend that you have this axe on you pretty much at all times. And that's because it can come in handy no matter what tree you are chopping because of the axe's insane range. However, you don't necessarily need this axe on you, but I would highly recommend at least having one on your base. Now for the Candy Corn Axe, you really don't need this one unless you are doing something that requires you to scale walls. For example, if you are hunting for spook and sinister wood, I highly recommend having this axe on you, as these trees often grow on the cliffs and you need an axe to scale up them. Alright, now we have the Frost Axe, and you really don't need the Frost Axe in your inventory unless you are, well, getting frostwood. And even if you are getting frostwood and forget your axe, it's not a big deal since the Mani Axe can cut frostwood super fast also, so it's really just a matter of saving a few seconds. So in summary, I recommend that you always have a Mani Axe, a Bluesteel Axe, or both, and also have a Candy Corn Axe either on your character or very close nearby. Well, that's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you for watching to the end of the video, and if any of the information in this video did help you, be sure to consider subscribing if you are not already. Anyways, I've got nothing else to say, so this is gonna be it from me. Goodbye!